Now, painting a camouflage scheme on a tabletop miniature can be really tricky because camouflage, by its very definition, is literally designed to disrupt and completely mess up all the principles that we try and work to when we're painting a tabletop mini. But what can we learn from costume design on the movies to make that a little bit easier? Now, the example I'm going to use for today is a Tau Pathfinder from the Warhammer 40k range. But these principles and tricks will work for any tabletop mini where you're trying to put a camouflage scheme in place. In particular, infantry models where they're generally a lot smaller. Now, the art of the Pathfinder is to see without being seen. But how can you paint your minis in a camouflage scheme that still reads correctly to the eye? Or you don't just lose them on the tabletop and because you can't see them and forget to even play them. I might have done that a few times before. Now, in a tabletop miniature, it tends to be a very smaller scale, and therefore it's like looking at somebody very, very far away. Now, to recognise exactly what you're looking at, you need to have that contrast in there, you need to have the colours in there. If you do the whole thing in camouflage, it will look like just a camouflagey blob thing. Now, first of all, we need to think about why things are seen, and also how we recognise things as a particular thing. Now, the first thing to look at is shape. Now, a tabletop mini has a very defined shape. Now, you may wish to try and disguise this with a ghillie suit or camo netting or something like that. But just remember, if you're doing that, you're changing the entire shape of the mini. Second thing to think about is surface. Now, surface, I'm talking about paint and colour here. Now, also into this comes like contrast and how the contrasting colours helps it to read what's happening in that miniature at a distance. And finally, shine. Now, we tend to think of this more about lighting and volumetric lighting. Therefore, it's a lot easier for your eye to recognise the shape of the object that you're looking at. Now, camouflage clothing especially is literally designed to mess all these up. It's designed to hide the shape. It's designed to make all the colours merge in together so you can't quite get a bead on exactly what you're looking at. Therefore, it hides it. Therefore, if you're not careful when you're painting a camouflage scheme, then you lose the shape, you lose the surface, you lose the lighting, and therefore it looks just like a camouflage blob. Now, this has been bugging me for ages, trying to figure out how I can tell the story of an infantryman, for example, in camouflage clothing, while still being able to see it. And then it hit me. Star Wars. Now, look at this picture of this scout trooper. He's in a camouflage uniform, but he's not completely camouflaged. Now, the panels of the armour are a camouflage pattern, but they maintain the shape and the silhouette of the figure by breaking those panels up with a black underlay. Whilst narratively you can recognise it as a camouflage trooper, a covert operator. But at the same time, the rules of camouflage haven't strictly been followed, so therefore the eye can still read exactly what's going on. So let's try and put this in practice. So I'm going to use this Tau Pathfinder model. Now, I chose this particular one because it's quite open, he hasn't got a weapon across his chest, and so we can have a play with these principles a bit easier. So from the outset, I've used a Vallejo Mecha primer in black using an airbrush, and this gives quite a nice satin finish to start with. So brush wise, I'm going to use a number 1 Rosemary & Co. Kolinsky Sable brush from the series 33. Awesome brushes, but it holds a lovely amount of paint, but it also has and maintains a really sharp point as well for getting in and doing some of the smaller panels. So the first paint I'm going to use is the Vallejo Model Air Sand Yellow, and I'm going to use this as a base for all of the armour panels. And this bit is really quick. All I'm doing is blocking out the armour panels. If you do go over it a little bit, you can just touch it back up again and neaten it up with some black paint later. Now, I'm doing it quite thin, so this will take a couple of coats. So with the magic of YouTube, those 2 coats are now on and dry. Now, for this unit, I'm going to use almost a multicam / digicam type scheme. Principle will work for any scheme that you want to try with. Also, you could swap the colours out and do more blues for more urban type camouflage, or more greens or browns. You can play with it to however you fancy. In the first phase of the cam, I'm going to use a dark green, and using just the tip of the brush, I'm going to stipple it on. Now, using a brush like this, you will kind of get a small line, almost like a little dash. So if you change the direction of those dashes, it makes it look less uniform as well. Also remember to use the very, very tip of the brush. Don't kind of splodge it on unless you want larger splodges of colour. Now, you could also try using an old brush where the bristles have started to split apart to get quicker coverage, but also more of a random pattern as well, as long as you're careful on some of the smaller panels. Now, I did try using a sponge on this, but it was too big for these small panels on these Tau models. So once I finish with the green all over, I'm then going to go over with a chocolatey brown. Also, I found using the Vallejo Model Air Whole Red gave it quite a nice ready brown to the mix as well, and made it and kind of tied it all together a little bit. Now, as you can see, this is not a character model, and I'm not spending a long time on this. I've got a lot of these to do. So even as a comparative speed paint, you can paint a lot of models comparatively quickly. Right, so that's the basics done. Now I'm going to add in some of the detail. So I'm going to use a light green for his handset and also for lenses, but also going back and using a wash of a dark green just to finish off those lenses. Now also what is worth doing in this, even though you've camouflaged it, if you can help to redefine those shapes by using a dark brown pin wash to go into those panel lines to help define those shapes a little bit. Now I want these Pathfinders to really look like they're hiding in the undergrowth. So I'm going to use some Citadel colour tufts. Now these are Mordian corpse grass, and build that into my base to help sell the idea that they are making the use of the terrain and getting down into the foliage. So once you've got your head around those principles of manipulating the shape, the surface and the shine, you can play with it to get loads of different options, loads of different effects and camouflage schemes, even on really small single infantry figures. But of course, when you're starting to look at some of the things like some of the drones or some of the bigger vehicles, your options open up even further. But the same principles apply. If you like that, if you found that useful, please bash that like button and share it across your social media. And I'll see you for the next project.